Welcome to the All About You podcast. My name is Sheila and I am your host. In this podcast, I invite people to tell their stories of their travels, hobbies, and passions. These podcasts are also now available on my All About You YouTube channel. So if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story. Welcome to the All About You podcast, and I'm delighted to be back here with Pier, and we are continuing our journeys around the world. So Pier, today we're off to Venezuela, so welcome back.
Thank you, Sheila. Yes, Venezuela, the sixth country more or less in our travels around the world, and that started in January 1999. So, where is Venezuela? Venezuela is larger than the combined areas of France and Germany, and it is located in the northern part of South America, and it lies along the Caribbean Sea. Do you know where the name is from, Venezuela?
I don't.
Well, it's got its name from the European explorers who named the region Little Venice, which is Venezuela, after observing local Indian houses on stilts along the shores of Lake Maracaibo. So that's the name, Venezuela. When we arrived, our base of operations was in Maracaibo, that is the second largest city in Venezuela, and located in the western part of Venezuela, along the Lake of Maracaibo, which, by the way, is the largest lake in South America. It is a beautiful country, and it is so diverse in nature. It has the beaches on the Caribbean Sea, forests, rivers, the Orinoco River basin, with its expansive llanos, the plains, and of course the mountains, the Andes. So you can understand that many trips have been made in the 4.5-year period all across this fantastic landscape. I also work, by the way.
I was beginning to wonder, we've got an awful lot of detail here, and in other podcasts you talked about your leather pursuits, but I think that's really good because it's the balance between work and leisure, and especially when you are in these fantastic countries, it would be very unwise not to take advantage.
Yes, and I took that advantage. So, I made many trips during the 4.5 years period, all across this fantastic landscape. The Andes, a trip to the Andes was so impressive. First, from Maracaibo, you have to cross over the bridge to the other side of the Lake of Maracaibo. And it is still one of the largest bridges in the world. Thereafter south and then entering the Andes at La Puerta. La Puerta, the door, that is the village or town, more or less to enter the Andes. So from there on you go up.
So that's why it's called La Puerta. It's the door to something. Yeah, yes. Very good.
On our way to Mérida. And in Mérida there is a cable car. It's called Teleférico, which brings you to the top of the Bolivar Peak. That Bolivar Peak is almost 5,000 meters high. So that peak is higher than, for example, the Mont Blanc in Switzerland. And the Mont Blanc doesn't have a cable car. But here, this peak, the Andes, does has a cable car all the way to the top.
I was just thinking how many quiz questions can come out of this one episode.
Yes. And the cable car stops in 3 stations because you have to get used to the air density that is becoming lighter and lighter. So you change cable car in the stations and you have the time to acclimatize yourself.
So before you go on the cable car, there must be a notice saying people maybe with a weak heart or problems with breathing, because 5,000 meters is not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah. So you have to be careful and take your time to go and say, well explained to people.
Yeah, interesting.
But then you're coming on the top and you are in the snow.
The view as you go up must be phenomenal.
Yeah, very nice.
Are you moving almost through the cloud? I mean, does it get
Yeah,
very
it
sort of
depends
misty?
on the timing.
Okay.
In the morning, the clouds are rising.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can't remember, by midday or so. Then
Yes, it warms up. What an experience though, God.
One trip what I made was to Los Roques. The area contains 300 islands and cays. And it is about half an hour flying trip in a small plane, which brings you to a small island, and that island has a runway. By the way, that island has a lighthouse, and it was built by the Dutch.
Oh, yeah, you're very proud. You're very proud.
And beautiful. Diving there, we stayed there 3 days. Oh, beautiful. Another beautiful place is to visit the National Park Henri Pittier. That is near Maracay, not far from the Caribbean coastline. The small, narrow roads to the top, Pico Ceniza, is challenging, especially if a Chiba bus, that is such an, maybe you have seen it on the films or so, with all bright colors and music in it.
It's like the party bus.
Yeah, and the driver doesn't get his hand off the
likes
klaxon.
to use
his horn all the time. So when you met such a bus, say take the preference, say don't stop. So that was always a challenge. But once you are there over the top and winding down, then you enter Chorini, a small fishing village where small fishing boats can bring you to the many precious beaches. At one of these remote beaches, my daughter and myself camped on the beach and made some diving trips. Very beautiful. And also in that area, I had a friend of mine had a posada. Posada is more or less a place where you can sleep and rest. It is here called hostel or motel.
Okay.
It's not the
full hotel experience.
Yeah. Very popular in Venezuela, by the way. You see it everywhere in Venezuela. Yeah, I stayed there a few times, and one time it was Christmas, New Year holiday. And on New Year's Eve, he put all the open wine and liquor bottles on the bar top for the guests. Oh, we had a very good time.
You had one great party to celebrate the New Year.
Yes, that was unforgettable, especially the next morning.
Oh dear.
By the way, he was organizing eco trips for tourists. And most of the tourists came from Isla de Margarita, because there were not many tourists in Venezuela, but Isla de Margarita was always full, especially German, and then he organized eco trips. And he brought palm trees from Venezuela to Aruba.
Really?
Yeah. When Aruba came up with all the hotel business, he supplied the palm trees in containers to Aruba. And of course, another fascinating place is Colonia Tovar. It is about 80 kilometers from Caracas. Colonia Tovar was created in 1843 by importing almost 400 settlers from the region Baden in Germany. That time Baden was an independent small country between France and Germany. And they got all different types of people in that group. There were writers, there were builders, there were farmers, there were doctors, pastors, you name it. And that ship arrived from Europe in Chorini and then settled in an area. That area where they settled was donated by the Count of Tovar. That's why the name Colonia Tovar. And that area had the same similarities as their homeland in Germany, in Baden. The climate, the elevation, it is about 1800 meters high. And the content of that ship gave them all the ingredients. They had machines, they had cattle, building materials, you name it. Everything to start an independent colony there. And the whole idea was to create a kind of
You're basically
perfect,
starting a new country with the people,
yes,
with the animals, with the businesses, for example.
yes, and that area stayed hidden or protected for quite a while, but in the 1960s it was open for the public. And I went there and I saw the lady still in the German type of costumed clothes, and the house like in Germany. And you had the strawberries, you had the German sausages, you had the beer, you had everything, the cuckoo's clocks.
Wow, that's incredible.
And the ceramics, yeah. But now it is a famous tourist attraction. Yeah, a small story about my work. I don't talk a lot about
just to
my
prove
work,
that you do work.
but just to show that I work. Not long after arrival in mid-1999, it was, the company needed somebody to steer the year 2000 project. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that. The world was going to end.
Yes,
I remember.
So also Shell Venezuela, of course directed by the Shell main officers, we had to prepare ourselves. And who would that be?
Let me guess.
Yeah, because I never refused the job. So beside my day-to-day job as head of service operations, I had to manage the year 2000 project, avoiding the collapse of the IT systems at midnight at New Year's Eve. However, okay. Well, all the computer systems, financial systems, pipeline systems, emergency systems, you name it, everything had to be checked on its integrity. And I think, that was one of the most stressed periods. That was really very stressful. And when the time was nearing Christmas and New Year's Day, we had lined up a center with diesel generators, Inmarsat communication. I don't know if you know what it is, but it is with a shuttle, and you had to calculate the degrees and whatever, to have communication with not only your own operations in the lake and on the other side of Lake Maracaibo, Ulay, but also with the main quarters in The Hague, in Holland. So we were there all waiting, the team was waiting, bang, 12 o'clock, midnight, and nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Which is a good thing that nothing happened, but yes.
Somebody got a lot of money out of that.
Absolutely they did, yes.
So after that we had to wait 2 hours after midnight. And then we all went to Hotel del Lago, that was a hotel nearby. And we had fun there.
You could relax and enjoy the new year. Now there was a year to enjoy.
Yeah. And another highlight, the birth of my son, Pedro. He was born in February 2001. My daughter was born in Oman, and now my son was born in Maracaibo. After that, in December 2002, there was the general strike in the petroleum industry. So Venezuela was ending up into a crisis, and Shell The Hague decided that the expat community had to be evacuated. And who had to stay behind?
You?
Yeah, me. So I had to stay behind to look after the castle. All the Shell employees went to Aruba in a hotel for the first week, and after that they had to be reallocated to their base country. So wherever they come from, France, UK, Holland, so you had to go back to the base country. And I had a good time. I had petrol for my car, because I had to visit every so often the base, because we had to keep the platforms in the Lake of Maracaibo running, because we had a sulfur installation. And the sulfur, when you produce sulfur out of the gas and oil, then you have to keep it going, otherwise all your heat exchangers and whatever will clog up. So we had to keep that running. And we had our daily meeting with Holland. Well, every day was the same. No changes. But okay, yeah, that was my last job. Was there to create with a mixed team with PDVSA a new project, the Cretaceous project. However, after a few months, PDVSA was the national oil and gas company. PDVSA more or less withdraw from the team, and yeah, so that was time for a new posting. So where to go now? So we went to London.
Right, so we're off to London next then.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe on whatever platform you are using. It is free, and if you would like to tell your story, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story.